today we're going to make some orchestral drill. I'll show you a few tips and tricks that I like to use when it comes to making melodies with strings. So when it comes to strings, what I like to do is separate the frequency spectrum by the type of string that's played. Probably just easiest if I show you. So I've got the tempo here set to 144 BPM. Now what I mean by splitting the frequency range between different sounds is that any good orchestral library usually has different types of articulations. So for instance, staccatos, a nice short stab hits. Pizzicatos are short plucks. I'm not an orchestral person and I can't pronounce all these, but sforzando is a little bit longer. Fortepiano is also a little bit longer. Sustain's obviously sustained. Tremolos obviously have that kind of vibrato sound, but they're sustained as well. So what I usually like to do is use one of these medium sizes like this one or this one as my main chords, and then use things like the staccatos and the pizzicatos as my counter melodies. With things like sustains, I tend to use them as and where just to back up sounds and make them sound fuller. Obviously, some orchestral libraries have other types of hits that fit somewhere in between these, like spiccatos, marcatos, etc. And with things like that, I'll stick to using the mid-length sounds for my chords, and I use the shorter sounds for my counters. Now, obviously, don't take that as a rule. Experiment, do your own thing, play around. You can get amazing results doing other techniques. This is just something that I find works really well. So I'm going to start with this sound here. I honestly can't pronounce it. Sforzando. Maybe somebody who knows better can tell me down in the comments. So when it comes to scales for drill, there's no rule. You can use major, minor, whatever you want really. I personally like drill when it sounds dark, so I'm going to use a minor scale. I also really like the Phrygian scale, for instance, or the Dorian scale, but we'll just stick with a natural minor today. You can use any of these. My personal favorite is C sharp because I can play it best on piano. However, today I think I'm going to switch it up and go for something like an F or an F sharp. So we're just going to start by placing the root note down. We'll turn that into a simple minor chord. Now, if you don't know how to make a minor chord, you can just go up 3 notes, and then from there go up 4 notes, and that'll work from any note to make its minor chord. From here, I'm just going to copy that one over. I'm going to bring this one down, which will make a suspended chord. Already starts giving it that kind of drill feel. I'm just going to extend this one out a bit, and then I'm going to bring it across. Just bring this one up. The drill works really well if a lot of the notes in the chords are similar. So for instance, in these first 2 chords, you have both of these and both of these. And in this last chord, you have the 2 of these. In every chord from the chord before, there's 2 notes that are the same. And then for the last one, we'll just bring it back to this chord here. I think I might just slightly change the rhythm of these. Bring this one forward a little bit. And then for the second 4 bars, I'm just going to copy that over. And then just to make a bit of variation, I'm going to add an extra few notes in. So another easy tip for drill melodies to get that dark feel is to utilize tension notes. Anywhere where the semitones are together, where it's like this note and this note together, or this note and this note, we'll utilize tension. So as you can see, we go from here to here, or here to here. And that creates that feel that we're looking for. Now, as you can hear, that all sounds a bit static and robotic. So next, we're going to humanize these a little bit. Now, this is Sculptor. It's a free Max for Live device. So we're just going to set this to velocity. We're going to use this to randomize the velocities. Now, I prefer this to Ableton's inbuilt method. It actually feels a little bit more like the randomization in FL Studio. You can hear that sounds just a little bit more natural. Now, obviously, when a human will be playing strings, not all the notes would hit perfectly on time either. So we're going to go to the start time, and we're just going to randomize this by a very small amount. Now, the differences, as you can see, are quite subtle. I'm liking the way these notes sound, but I just want to take them a bit lower as I want to make it a little bit darker. This will create room for our staccato to be slightly higher. Next, I'm just going to put a low cut on these. And just to give it a bit more of a dark feel, I'm just going to take out some of the highs as well. Just to push them a little bit further into the background, I'm going to add a small amount of reverb. Next, I just want to add a counter melody, so I've gone back to the same library in Contact. I've selected the violin ensemble. I've set it to staccato. As you can see here, we're in the 2nd octave, just popping up towards the 3rd octave there. So on this one, if we come up to the 4th octave, we know they won't clash. Even if we come down into the 3rd, we're not really going to clash too much. So we're just going to start off here, and then we're going to utilize some tension notes. So I'm just going to copy this one over, and then we'll just create some variation on the second part. Then once again, we'll copy that over. We'll just create some variation here on this part. Maybe reverse these round. So just on the timing wise, I can hear there's a slight clash with my chords. So I think instead of having the timing different here, we're just going to bring it to the same as this one. It's these two notes here that I feel are clashing. We'll bring this back to the same as the other one as well. Yeah, I think that sounds better now. Obviously now we need to make these feel a little bit less static. We'll just bring up the sculpting tools again, change the velocities. Next we'll just change the start time slightly as well, so they're not all perfectly on grid. So once again, just to make these feel a bit darker, we're going to dampen them slightly. Just with a high cut. Make sure there's no low end in there. So next, just to soften these a little bit, staccatos can be quite harsh. I pulled up Guitar Rig. I've put in the vocal space preset. I feel this just softens sounds a little bit. So next, I just want to back up the original chords. I've come into session strings and I've chose this spiccato. So on this layer, I'm just going to bring the chords over. Now this sounds quite quiet, so I'm just going to bring these up a little bit. I'm also going to double this up to the next octave up. I'm just going to pull out these extra connecting notes here though, so it's just on the actual chords themselves. The next, I just want to make another counter melody with something sustained. And I'm just going to pick a viola solo. So just to make this stand out and feel a bit separate, we're not going to start on the root note. We're going to start on a different note. And we're just going to go for a different rhythm on these. Just going to go ahead and change the velocities on these as well, just to make them feel less robotic. And then just the start times as well. I'm liking the way that sounds, but I just want to thicken it up. So I'm just going to copy that over. And this time, rather than playing a viola, which is actually a high-pitched string, I'm going to go ahead and change it up for a cello. Now, obviously, the cello is a much lower string than a viola, but this is a range where both of those instruments can hit. But with the cello, rather than keeping it on sustain, I'm just going to change it for this forte piano. It's more like an accented hit. And then we're just going to drop the volume of the cello down a bit as well. So just to give a bit of separation here. I'm going to pan this one to the left. I'm going to pan this one to the right. We're also going to put some reverb on the cello just to put it a bit further in the background. We'll just pull our EQ8 to after the reverb. Make sure not too much low end is in here. Take out the top as well. And then on this one here, we'll take out the low end. We'll leave the top in. In fact, we'll give it a little boost as well. And then I think we can just drop the volume of both of them a little bit as well. So when I'm making melodies like this, I often like to add impacts using either brass or bells or stabs. Pick this Hollows drill from Heat Up 3. I'm just going to place this down on the root note. Next, I'm just going to layer that up with a bell as well. I'm just going to pick this Ninja's tubular. I use this way too much. It's kind of like my go-to bell for this kind of beat. So instead of having that on the same notes, I'm just going to alternate them so that they hit in between. Maybe just a couple extra here at the end as well. Have these ones a bit softer though. Okay, so with the melody sounding quite full, I'm going to go ahead and start putting some percussion down. Now, if you're new to making drill, standard drill pattern on a counter snare would be to place one down, skip two, place another one down, skip two, place another one down, and then just bring that over, starting from the half bar again. Now, obviously, that's a really stereotypical pattern. It's quite boring these days. From here, though, you can just make it more complicated. You can remove some notes, for instance, this one. Then you can add in some notes that are kind of half velocity or some rolls. As you can hear, that has a bit more bounce now. Even that's quite basic and simple as it goes. Now, another way that I like to add extra bounce to my counter snares, I'll bring the counter snare onto its own channel here by hitting extract chains, and then bring in a return track, then this to the return track, bring in my favorite delay. What I then like to do is bring in my favorite side chain, which is kickstart 2, set the input of that from the counter snare, set it to audio. So what this will do is just duck out that delay every time that the counter snare hits. This is just a lot cleaner than putting delay on the channel and it just carrying on. From there, I just like to play with the amounts. Maybe I want a bit less feedback. You can also set these to ping pong so that they go left and right. And then from here, you can just blend in how much of it you want because you might not want a full volume of it. So obviously without it. And as you bring it in, adds so much more bounce to the counter snares, gives it so much more rhythm. Then the great thing about that is you can automate that return track on and off. So maybe you want it in for the chorus, but don't want it in for the verses and vice versa. So let's add a snare in next. As always, just add a crash at the start. Before I add my 808, I'm just going to play with the melody a little bit. I'm just going to try it in different pitches. I'm just going to group the tracks. Just going to add wave sound shifter. I'm just going to try knocking the semitones down a little bit, see where I prefer it. I think I like it here at -3 semitones. Now, as I don't like the artifacts that Sound Shifter brings, I'm just going to ungroup those again. Now here at this point, I have two choices. I can bring the notes down by 3 semitones to match what I heard there, or I can go ahead and record them all into audio and then pitch it down by 3. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to select them all. I'm going to right click, I'm going to hit freeze tracks, then I'm going to right click again, and I'm going to go to flatten tracks. This will convert everything down to audio. So now that's all in audio form, I can just go ahead and grab them. Make sure down here this is set to complex. And I can just pitch that down by 3. Obviously no drill beats complete without an 808. Okay, so that's my main 808 pattern done. I like to make a few of these, as I like to switch it up in the verses, and also I like to switch it up for transitions sometimes. I've just put some kickstart 2 on here. I'm just going to side chain it to my first drum rack, and I'm just going to select the input as the kick, set it to audio. Quick tip with kicks is less is more. If you have too many, it kind of stops the impact of them. As you can see, I like to have them quite spaced out. If I was to put down a bunch of extra kicks, places where they might fit other styles of beats, as you can hear, it just overcomplicates the kick pattern. Less is definitely more. So at this point, the beat's quite full. I'm quite happy with how it sounds. I think it's just missing that one extra thing for the chorus. So I've pulled up a piano. I've got the Ruffian Rhapsody preset. I'm just going to put down some really simple high notes, just utilizing these tension notes. Copy this over a few times, and then on this last one, maybe switch it up. Maybe something like this. We'll just copy that one over, and then just switch these up a bit. So just to elongate all these notes, I'm just going to hit legato, and we'll make these a bit more realistic by using the sculpting tools again. So we'll just start by changing the velocity. And I'm just going to go to strum, turn the tension up a bit here, shift it very slightly. With pianos like this, I always like to add a bit of compression. I'm just going to set the ratio at 4:1, bring the threshold down further. I don't want them to be too prominent. I want them to be quite in the background. This is an extra texture to come in during the chorus. So maybe try some replica on these as well. Just set it to ping pong so it bounces back and forth. Pull our EQ out across here. Take out the low frequencies. Okay, so I changed my mind on that one. I actually changed it for a pizzicato string. So this is a violin. Is how it sounds instead. And that's actually an octave lower than it was before. For the most part, that's most of the beat done. I'll just bring things in and out as I structure it. And I may add one or two things, just some fills, some transitions, things like that. Now, before I structure it, if you've got this far in the video, I just want to say thank you. I really do appreciate it. Don't forget, you can hit that subscribe button just down below. So now I'm going to go ahead and structure the beat, add some transitions, and then we'll come back and I'll walk you through what I've done. Right, let's show you what's different. So down here, I've got some automation on the master. This is just an EQ8 doing a high cut filter. It just fades off as the beat kicks in. We've got some automation on the return track from the counter snares. This is just bringing it in for the chorus section and back off for the verse section. So I've added a drum fill for the drop, and this is just automating the volume on it. We've also got a small amount of volume automation on an 808 fill just for the drop as well. Take a listen to how it sounds. So this intro section's just got that filter on it. So it just starts coming off here. The drop here. I think this one sounds nuts. Got everything but the pizzicato strings, they just come in for the second half. Then just a small break here before the verse comes in. And then we just take all the energy out. Bring a little bit back in here. Bring the 808 back in here. Now this is a different 808 pattern from the chorus. We've got another 808 pattern coming in here now. These are just small subtle changes. This section here, we just take all the energy back out before the chorus. This is basically like the intro again. It's got the same filter kicking in back here, which just sweeps off. Drops back into the chorus section again. I think this one came out hard. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. If you want to see an easy way to make the 808 drill glides, maybe click here. Until next time, I've been SK. Peace.